The venue with just 3 races remaining in the chase for the Nextel Cup. It is time for final practice. Let's go into the garage area for some late-breaking stories and join Matt Yoakum.
Well, Steve, last week Greg Biffle said all weekend that he couldn't wait for Texas and Phoenix and Homestead. He won the season finale last year at Homestead, and you won here in the spring. Is your car this weekend as good as it was here in the spring?
I think it's close. At first practice we ran really well, qualified well, so making some changes here to see how it runs. Haven't really got a chance to look at the lap tracker to see where we were, but compared to our teammates, we feel we're pretty close, and overall I think we're pretty decent.
When you look at this track, do you feel like we're going to see some side-by-side racing?
I think so, definitely. The Busch race today will really tell the tale, but we'll see side-by-side racing for sure, and especially in these cars.
He'll roll off 7th on the grid tomorrow. He's 3rd in the championship standings. To Marty Snyder.
Well, Matt talked to Tony Stewart's crew just a moment ago, and they said they were fine-tuning for this practice session. So how was the car in the first session, Smoke?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I'm talking to you. What do you want? I want to know how good the car was in the first practice.
Well, you got timesheets, don't you, like everybody else?
I do indeed, but I wasn't sitting inside this thing, so I didn't know how it felt in the butt.
It's pretty good. I mean, speed-wise, we're pretty good. We're just trying to fine-tune it and get the feel that I'm wanting right now. But, we're all having fun today and joking around on the Home Depot team, and we think we can find some things here in a minute to get a little bit better even.
The atmosphere does seem awfully loose for 3 races to go, Tony.
Who's counting races?
That's the way it needs to be. They're having a lot of fun. Tony told me, if we get this race car close, the one they won Indianapolis with, that's all we need, because this race car takes care of us during the race.
Hey, tell you what, Marty, I'll bet Tony Stewart is counting points. He leads Jimmy Johnson by just 43 with 3 remaining. Now, we've already had 1 practice this morning, and Larry Mack, you said it yesterday. This is a normal weekend, which means they can qualify and then get to work on the race cars.
The first thing I want to say, obviously Tony Stewart was trying to play mind games with Marty Snyder. Marty was not going to lose that battle. I'm proud of Marty. But yeah, Tony Stewart actually said earlier in the week, this is one of the most temperature-sensitive racetracks that we go to. We saw it in Busch qualifying last night. This racetrack really changes. This race starts late tomorrow afternoon, and the sun's going to go down. So what these teams have to do, you heard them talking about fine-tuning, is make changes to these cars to see what affects them. You may not find out at 11 o'clock in the morning how much it affects it, but you'll find out what affects it.
Now, Jeff, I said we've had 1 practice already. What happens between then and now?
Well, for a lot of these teams right now, Steve, what they're doing is they've been looking at the tire sheets, the tire wear in particular, where the camber is. We know that NASCAR mandated a minimum on the air pressure, so they're looking to make sure that all of a sudden, because of that, they're not overusing that right front tire. You can wear a right front tire out here and get yourself in a lot of trouble. So looking at that kind of information, making those kind of changes, which you can't make during the course of the race, is what a lot of these teams have been working on right now. Again, looking at also the laps that's been run as far as how they compare to everybody else around the racetrack over these long runs. You got to realize a guy like Mark Martin, he's already run 46 laps in that first practice, trying to make sure they got the right balance, the right tire wear for this ever-changing racetrack there.
We'll also update the story of Ryan Newman, the pole sitter. He crashed on his 2nd lap of qualifying, but he's in a backup car. We'll update that and other stories after this.
Dear Darryl, you've become quite the famous entertainer. You're not going Hollywood on us, are you?
No, not this year. Sincerely, Darryl Waltrip. Toyota, moving forward.
Have you made the O part of your life? At Overstock.com, you can find anything you need for everything you do. You'll save on home furnishings for every room in your house. Jewelry, books, videos, music, and more. With a low flat rate shipping fee and live customer service 24/7. Overstock.com also has the easiest to use auctions. And a travel department, because everyone deserves a vacation. Make the O part of your life. Overstock.com. It's all about the O.
It's time for football, the Hooters way, where you get 2 spectator sports for the price of 1. And if you really miss the stadium, we can always pour beer down your back and stand in front of the TV. And you can catch all your favorite games here with our brand new big screen TV. And at Hooters, everybody gets a cheerleader.
football the Hooters way. You'll be trained for overtime.
They'll come together from every corner of the country. 70 of racing's fastest rising stars compete on one incredible weekend at Irwindale Speedway. National bragging rights are on the line, along with $500,000 in prize money. The NASCAR Autos
helmet on, leans down, and headbutts me. Slices my eye open, still a scar.
And he was so upset. You'd think that he'd be happy. He just scored a touchdown.
You kind of remember just the personal relationships, and those are still stronger than any final score that we had in high school.
And now, the best action from Week 8.
Run, but during qualifier, Larry Mack, he had a fantastic first lap, but tried to get maybe a little bit greedy on that second lap.
Yeah, and you can see right here in the middle of turn 3 and 4, it was not that he got loose, it was not that the car picked up a push. Something broke on the front of that car, possibly the right front tire went down, so now he will have to go to a backup car. But this was Busch Series qualifying. The second lap bit him in Nextel Cup, but the second lap paid off for him in Busch Series qualifying. He sat on the pole.
And he will try to win his 6th consecutive Busch Series race here this afternoon. Let's check in with Marty Snyder, who has more on Ryan Newman.
And, Steve, I just talked to Ryan moments before he climbed in the race car. He told me he was happy with his car. He described it as neutral. They're going to make a few changes on it here in this final session. They did something they normally don't do in practice. They made 2 long runs in the initial practice, one of 22 laps, one of 23 laps, that he ran with Tony Stewart the whole time, so he's confident in this race car. Now, they've taken a backup car before and finished 2nd with one and 3rd with one, so they think they could do the same thing tomorrow and get a top 5 out of Texas. That would be a great feat after the wreck yesterday. Matt?
The chase for Jeff Gordon is now $1 million, trying to lock in that 11th position. Made some room last week, made 3 spots in the championship standings, qualified on the outside of the front row. He's getting ready to back his car out for this final practice session, but they are struggling. 40th fastest in the first session. Steve Letard, his crew chief, told me the car extremely loose on entry, extremely loose on exit. That's what they're battling. They've made a number of changes. This is going to be a very important final practice session for the 2014. And the surprising thing about that, he qualified 2nd. I know they tested here and was very happy with that test.
Jeff Gordon has never won at Texas Motor Speedway. Practice headed your way right after this.
Miami's nightlife just got a whole lot brighter. Ford Championship Weekend returns for another chase for the NASCAR Nextel Cup season finale. This time under the lights. The drama, 1 lap.
Rebel's going to win the battle, and Busch will win the war.
The tightest points race ever. Ford Championship Weekend, November 18th through the 20th. For tickets, call 1-866-409-RACE or log on to HomesteadMiamiSpeedway.com. Ford Championship Weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway, under the lights.
A robot can make a car. But this is how you can make it roar. A chip can control the engine. But this is how you can set it free. A manual says what a car might do. Now discover what it wants to do. Give it the edge. Give it Syntec. No leading oil provides more horsepower. For maximum power, great cars want more than just oil. Give them liquid engineering.
Hey, you want to see something cool?
Now you can hang out with an NFL quarterback.
Hey, I'm coming to your house.
Fathead are larger-than-life wall graphics that bring all the NFL action right into your home or office.
Fathead is huge. That's how big a Fathead is.
Just peel and place. Fathead is easy to put up and can be moved over and over.
The coolest thing is, put it on the wall, you don't like it there, peel it off, put it on another wall.
Too big and real for retail stores? Just visit Fathead.com to find all of your favorite Fathead teams and players. Officially licensed by the National Football League and Players, Inc.
Fathead is the coolest thing out right now. You get a fat head.
Fathead are for true NFL enthusiasts only.
Take those posters off the wall, kick them out, and put a Fathead.
Fathead. Go big. Real big.
What are you looking at? Hello, people in TV land, get a Fathead.
How about some final practice in about 5 seconds from now, Jeff Hammond and Larry McReynolds?
It's kind of like we're going to get out here in the middle of the street and say draw. See who's the last man standing. That final practice, guys. And look who's leading us off pit road right now. Some guys that are really in the thick of this chase right now. Mark Martin, Ryan Newman. Guys set on the pole.
This is the last time these guys will have final practice on Saturday because this is the last race that is not an impound race, which is great news for Ryan Newman and that 12 team because they get these 2 45-minute practice sessions.
Larry, you addressed something moments ago about practice being at 11 a.m. local, but the race tomorrow is late in the day. So how difficult does it make for you two crew chiefs to work on getting your race car adjustable?
Well, I think maybe the first practice was a little more important because the track hadn't heated up as much. But as I said in the opening of the show, what these guys have to do is find out what adjustments affect the race car because you know no matter if your race car is even good, Jeff, you're going to have to try to keep up with this racetrack changing.
That's going to be the key right now, Steve, and we will use the word from time to time during this practice session of balance. You want to get the balance in your car so you can tune it front to rear, you know, loosen it up, tighten it up. But you've got to have that kind of tunability. We've heard a lot of these guys talk about it, tunability in your race car during this final practice.
How about this part of the equation? This is the first time since 1997 that we have raced twice here in one season. How is this racetrack different than it was here in April, Jeff?
Well, it's definitely had a hot summer put on it, and a lot of times that'll change some of the characteristics of how a track will react. And I think that's what a lot of these teams right now are kind of chasing. They were a little bit surprised when they got here and they unloaded yesterday. The track was totally different when they tested a few weeks earlier. So it's changing a lot.
So, Larry, are your notes valid from that test session? Are they valid from the first race here in April?
Well, what you've got to be careful from a test session, and a lot of teams did come here and test, and we talked to Kurt Busch yesterday, and he said his car was very loose at the test session. But when they unloaded, the car was very tight. The front end wouldn't turn. That's what happens to this racetrack, even in the spring conditions, when it starts and ends in the daylight, is the more rubber that's put down on this racetrack, the car loses more and more front grip. The car wants to push the front end.
And last night we had a Craftsman Truck Series race here. They'll also have a Busch race here later on this afternoon. So this track will be a lot different when they see it tomorrow when they drop the green flag.
See Kevin Harvick in the 29 car, he was putting an awful lot of pressure on Ryan Newman in the 12 car, and finally Ryan moved over and just let him go by because right now Ryan's trying to concentrate on this race car, and when you look in that mirror and all you see is the eyes of a driver behind you, sometimes that's a distraction. You can't learn what you need to learn here by that happening.
Ryan Newman in the 12 car, third fastest in the first practice this morning. Jeremy Mayfield in the 19, Kurt Busch in the 97. Their championship hopes have faded quickly.
Yeah, I mean, mathematically, with 3 races to go, they have not. But as I have said time and time again, and I think you've got to put Rusty Wallace in the 2 car in the mix, with 3 races to go, Jeremy Mayfield, Kurt Busch, and Rusty Wallace, they're more than 156 points behind Tony Stewart. You can only make up 156 points over the course of one race. I think with 3 races to go, that's a stretch. But just remember, these guys are not just going to roll over because even when you look back at the money that's paid the difference between 10th and 5th, even though the championship pays over $5 million, there's a substantial difference in the positions back there as far as money.
Carl Edwards, the big story a week ago at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, winning both races on that racetrack.
But now this guy is still alive right now because right now he is 4th in the points, only 107 points behind. And one of the reasons is, like you mentioned, Steve, what he did at Atlanta Motor Speedway last week.
He comes to the checkered flag first, his 3rd win of the 2005 season, and a better backflip than the one he had there in the spring. He nailed that one.
He got to realize something. In the spring, he ran the double. They did not run but one race right there. So he had a little bit fresher legs.
Better legs.
Fresher legs, yeah.
But the amazing thing is 5 top 10 finishes in these 7 chase races. That's one of the reasons that he's up there in the top 5.
Larry, you said it yesterday. If anybody would have asked any one of the so-called experts, ourselves included, at the beginning of the season, would Carl Edwards have 3 wins and be in the midst of the championship chase?
No,
probably not.
Maybe the wins, a few, a 1 maybe, but not in the middle of this chase.
I do know this. There's been 9 races here with 9 different winners. Roush has 4. Carl Edwards would like to become number 5.
Good point. There has never been a repeat winner at the Texas Motor Speedway since 1997. We'll be right back.
One final race, one final shot, one Nextel Cup champion.
Speed goes live from Miami for the biggest week in NASCAR.
It's crazy all over town.
Championship Week begins November 16th on Speed.
This is Duralast, the battery built to exceed the need. Engineered with all the cranking power you need for extreme conditions. Get the battery built to exceed the need. Only at AutoZone.
Hello, friend. You don't need to own music to discover music, to love music, to share music. 1.5 million songs, unlimited access. Own nothing, have everything. Join us.
Optima batteries with spiral cell AGM technology offer twice the life and more than 15 times the vibration resistance of ordinary batteries. In fact, the spill-proof six-pack design is tough enough to outlast practically everything, including your vehicle. Optima, the ultimate power source.
Sunday night on Speed.
Sports talk for car guys.
The subject is motorsports.
I like all forms of racing.
The co-host and guest have their opinions.
Is it marketing or is it racing? Exactly.
The fan on the line thinks it's one big conspiracy.
Talk about conspiracy theory. First turn, everyone wrecks. Give me a break.
And Dave is in the middle of it all.
He's going to make me work for my exclusive. People knew I wanted to race.
Wind Tunnel, live Sunday nights, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, only on Speed.
With me, Dave the Spade.
Has 4 top 10 finishes and 7 starts here at the Texas Motor Speedway, but he has yet to go to victory lane.
Right now, he's 23rd quickest in this practice session. He ran 8 laps so far.
Larry, just watching him, looks to me like he is one of the guys that's really focused on being consistent, keeping that car right on the bottom of that white line. He's just hunting the bottom of this racetrack, and that's where he's really a strong suit. And they do what they normally do. They get this car where it doesn't wear any tires out, and the car really is good on the long run.
I talked to his crew chief, Greg Zipadelli, yesterday, and like Greg told me, he's not going to be comfortable unless they tell him when they go to Homestead, Miami, that all they have to do is crank the engine, drive off pit road. But I do believe if they come out of here with a top 8, top 10 finish, you're going to see them go more to the defensive side, because right now he's 43 points ahead of this man right here, Jimmy Johnson, in the 48 car. But if Tony Stewart bobbles, this car right here will be right there with him.
You know, you bring up an interesting point, and I kind of counter on that right there. Instead of going defense, to me, it seemed like, you know, I would want to keep doing what I've been doing. Every time that you try to safety up, it seems like it may come back to bite you and opens that door for somebody to come and get you. So why not go out and just keep this kind of like
in other words,
away?
Like the football expression, let's not go into the prevent defense.
Yeah, what I think he meant more, Jeff, is look closer at your competition. Like the 48, like the 16 and the 12 and the 99. Pay a little closer attention to those guys.
Let me reference back to maybe an illustration you're talking about. What the 12 car did at Richmond. They knew at that point in time in the race what they had to do to make sure they made the chase to the championship.
Marty, what's shaking in the garage?
Carl Edwards is in the garage, Steve-O, and I talked to Carl before he got in the car. He said, you know, I'm happy with it, but we're still searching for something. We just don't have a little bit of something that the other cars seem to have than us. Right now, just a top 10 race car. Went out on a 10-lap run, came into the car too tight, especially in the middle of the corner, and he said, you know, if it's that tight at the beginning of the run, we won't have the speed we need to keep up with everybody else. We're trying to loosen up Carl, especially on sticker tires. Matt?
And Jimmy Johnson debriefing on the radio right now with his crew chief, Chad Knaus. He ran 11 laps so far in this final practice session. They were tight in the center big time in the first session, and that's exactly what he's telling his crew chief. That's exactly what the car is doing in this session. Now, the 97 Kurt Busch still struggling in this final practice session. Not good in the first session, not good in the second. He's run 5 laps, but he's 30th on the speed chart. They are still tight.
And Matt, right behind Kurt Busch, Matt Kenseth in the 17 car, and Rusty Wallace, 3 drivers in the chase, all having subpar times in this practice thus far.
And we talk about having subpar times. You got to realize Mark Martin is the quickest guy out there right now, and he ran a 29 flat, while these other cars ran basically 29.50. So they're half a second off, but they're really looking more for the field than anything else right now. The car is not giving them what they need to get the speed out of it and be consistent.
You see, Mark Martin right now, he's the fastest in this practice session. And I get a feeling, Jeff, you and I have been watching him. he's only ran 5 laps in this practice. It's like they're making real short runs. Possibly, Marty, are they scuffing tires?
No, they are not scuffing tires, Larry Mack. They're looking for a little bit of a different feel for Mark. Mark's been happy with the car. Obviously, they're very fast, and he said top of the speed charts, and he's been, content with the race car. But Mark said it doesn't have the feel that it had when we tested here. We're missing a little something. Make it feel like it did when we tested here. That's what Mark is seeking. So they're trying different shock and spring combinations, specifically in the front. They tried 2 different left front shocks on these 2 different runs. That's what they're doing right now. A 3rd left front shock on right now.
And Steve, that goes back to what we were talking about, the way the track has changed. Testing all the way done to today. I mean, from the weather and the temperature, this racetrack will drive a crew chief and a race car driver crazy because you're trying to get it. Man, that was so good. If we could just get it back there, I'd be that much better. And they may never find it. That's the sad part about it. The way the track has changed, the rubber's on it right now, they may have to live with it, and that's what they're trying to make sure of.
Now, we were talking about Matt Kenseth a while ago. Great qualifying run last night. He qualified 3rd, but because Ryan Newman will have to go to the rear of the field with the backup car, NASCAR, the way they do it, when a car comes out of a row or a line, they just move that line up. So actually, when the green flag drops tomorrow afternoon on NBC, Matt Kenseth will actually start from the pole. But Ryan Newman gets credit for the Bud pole.
Matt Kenseth won here in 2002. We'll take a break from final practice here at the Texas Motor Speedway and have much more of the coverage here on Speed right after this.
Add a little horsepower to your holiday season with Speed's All-American Thanksgiving Marathon. 2 days of iron horses and ground-pounding muscle that's sure to satisfy any holiday hunger. The All-American Thanksgiving Marathon beginning November 24th at 9, only on Speed.
See you tonight.
Okay.
Introducing the all-new Suzuki Grand Vitara. You want more out of life? Suzuki's giving you the green light. Go! Lease the all-new Suzuki Grand Vitara for just $199 a month for 30 months. Hurry in.
I'm thinking of a number between $450 and $850. Do you know what it is? It's my credit score, and it happens to be 720. The higher my credit score, the better chance I have of saving a lot of money. Do you know your credit score? Do you know what's in your credit report? You can find out right now at freecreditreport.com. You can even print it out if you want to. How much easier could it get? Log on to freecreditreport.com. That's freecreditreport.com.
Offer applies with enrollment in Triple Advantage.
This is our marathon station. We own it. We run it, and, we're proud to be part of this community.
My name's on the door, so everything's got to be right. I mean, these people know me, and I want to take care of them.
When you're an independent dealer, your reputation's on the line every day.
But it's not just about running a business for us. It's about being a part of a community that we care about.
We know what our customers want because we know our customers.
Helping friends and neighbors, that's the spirit of America. Marathon, fueling the American spirit.
Greg Biffle won here in April, leading 219 laps. Comes here 3rd in points, 75 behind Tony Stewart. Take a look at the finishes for your top 3 drivers in points here in April.
And Greg Biffle, this is good news for Ryan Newman. He did it with a backup car. They crashed in Saturday morning's practice. They went to a backup car. You see Tony Stewart finishes 31st. That was the only DNF for this 20 team this year. Had a huge engine fire. The engine blew up coming off turn 2. Huge fire that actually put second-degree burns on his right leg.
Let's take a look at what happened. The incident that Larry Mack described. Lots of fire inside that 20 car.
See right there already, getting unhooked and throwing the window net out, trying to get out of that race car again. A lot of flames got up inside there, past the shifter boot, and actually got up against his right leg. You see, when he gets out of the car, he'll limp over, already holding that leg. And Larry, you talked about second-degree burns to that right leg of his.
Tony back in the garage, sitting in the Home Depot Chevrolet from Joe Gibbs Racing. And, I know you guys, when you were crew chiefs, you were big on debriefing. what happened to a race car? What happened to an engine? Why did things happen? I'm sure the Joe Gibbs Racing team, they know exactly what happened to that engine, and they won't have the same problem here.
Oh, I think that's safe to say, and that's something you don't really see a lot with Joe Gibbs Racing engine is an engine failure.
Rusty Wallace, just 32nd fastest here, 3 weeks in a row. He has had bad luck in this, his final season, and in the chase for the Nextel Cup.
And the irony of his bad luck in these 3 races, when you look at Lowe's and Martinsville, it happened with less than 20 laps to go. Last week at Atlanta, it all started before about lap 5. This was at Martinsville. Had the pit road penalty there for pitting out of the box. You can see the official waving him back.
Loudon, New Hampshire.
This is at Talladega.
Tries to avoid
the big
trouble.
one.
Yep. Gets down into the grass. Head on to Lowe's Motor Speedway.
And this was very, very late in the race with just a handful of laps to go.
And that was after he'd already got himself out of being a lap down and got back on the lead lap and was making a little bit of a recovery. Again, loses a right rear tire right there at the end, loses a quarter panel.
Had a top 5 right there at Martinsville. Jeff Burton got into the back of him. Rusty said he had to check up a little bit. The result is he's in the fence. Opening laps a week ago.
Just nowhere to go. Coming off turn 2.
7 laps into the race. Dale Earnhardt Jr. in that number 8 car, 14th fastest in this practice. And Jeff, you were talking about it about him yesterday. His enthusiasm level is sky high. Let's ride with him.
Right now he's following the 11 car. Then Hamlin down the back straightaway. See the RPMs going on 9,000, over 9,000 RPMs down in the corner. He's run a little bit of a higher line, more so than a lot of guys have been doing so far in this practice session. Now he's going to try to pull it to the inside, give him a little run off of that turn, get to the inside of the 11 car as he goes across the start-finish line, and now down into turn 1. Looking pretty good, Larry.
It does not look like 24 degrees of banking right there. That was a little bobble right there.
Had to catch that one.
But this is deep into a run. Look at the end of the shortest straightaway, the backstretch right here, 186 miles per hour off into turn 3, and how quick they picked the throttle up, almost before the center of the corner.
Well, Steve, you were saying, yes, earlier, that's the one thing that I've noticed since they've made those changes over there at DEI. He seems like he's got the right attitude that you want to have with your driver, especially as you're going toward the end of the season right now. I think he's looking forward to 2006 already.
This is the same car that he had at Atlanta last week with that top 5 finish and led 142 laps with.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. will start 10th tomorrow. Let's go to Matt Yoakum.
If you look at the speed sheet, Steve, Greg Biffle's 25th fastest, but he is very pleased with this race car. Now, he just told his team that down in turns 1 and 2, the car is almost perfect. Very good on entry. They did change a right front shock, which they're making that change as we speak. But he said moments ago when you guys were recapping Rusty Wallace's chase, he's sitting in the car and he can look up and see the monitor hanging from the ceiling. He says, whoa, there's someone wrecking coming off the backstretch. Oh, no, that's just a replay of Rusty earlier this year.
These guys do pay attention even when they're sitting in those race cars. But just look right there, what a difference a year has made. Just look at the difference in wins and top 10s. Look at the difference in points position. But trust me, these guys started showing their mark about the end of last summer. When they won the Michigan race, they obviously made a statement that we will be a championship contender in 2005.
Mentioned a little while ago that Jeff Gordon, who has 73 career wins, has never won at Texas. See, his best finish is 2nd. He's just 29th in this practice session.
But again, we know they've been making changes, trying to get this car where he can be comfortable not only getting into the turns, but from the center out, which you really got to be able to do here at Texas, because this is a momentum racetrack. You make up a lot of ground, picking up the throttle early and driving down these straightaways.
You know, Jeff, I mentioned he's never won here at the Texas Motor Speedway, one of just a handful of tracks where he has not been to victory lane. But his last 5 finishes here, 4 of them have been top 5.
Well, there's only 4 tracks on the Nextel Cup circuit he has not won at. One of them is Chicago. The other 3 is these last 3 races right here at Texas, next week at Phoenix, and 2 weeks in Miami Homestead. He did win a Busch Series race at Phoenix one time.
So he'll try to get rid of those goose eggs in the final 3 events of 2005 while building momentum with his new crew chief, Steve Letarte, for 2006.
And with finishing second at Atlanta, first at Martinsville 2 weeks ago, he has moved from 17th to 12th in points. Right now, he's out of control, he said, though. Had an interesting conversation with Steve Letarte yesterday morning. He said, Larry, this is a brand new car with a new style body, new style everything. We think we've taken everything we've learned so far and we've put it into this 24 car. We think we've got a good package based on the test.
Elliott Sadler was very quick in the first practice, good again here in the second practice. Former winner here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Speed goes live from Miami for the biggest week in NASCAR.
It's crazy all over town.
Championship Week begins November 16th on Speed.
There's one conventional oil that totally defies convention. Mobile Clean 5000. The first oil enhanced with a high-endurance formula. The only one guaranteed to protect for 5,000 miles. Mobile Clean 5000. The oil that's changing oil.
Want to hang out with an NFL receiver?
You think you got what it takes?
Now, you could put Torrey Holt in your room with Fathead.
Hey, you call me a fathead?
Big and bold, Fathead is pure NFL power and action.
Man, I didn't know I looked that good.
Fathead are easy to put up. Just peel and place. Fathead won't damage your walls and can be moved over and over.
That's all you gotta do?
Too big and real for retail stores? Just visit Fathead.com to find all your favorite Fathead teams and players. Officially licensed by the National Football League and Players, Inc. Favre, McNabb, Vick, Urlacher, Barber, and Torrey Holt.
Go big, go real. Go get a Fathead right now. They're gonna be gone soon.
Fathead. Go big, real big. Classic and collectible. Fathead.com.
What are you looking at?
The paint scheme on that number 88, designed by Dale Jarrett's son, Zach, and his daughters had input. And the reason, guys, it's for a charitable cause, Toys for Tots. UPS stores involved, trying to make sure that, as Dale Jarrett said yesterday, that every kid has something under the Christmas tree.
And very fitting that the holiday season is right here upon us here in just under 2 months.
It's always great to speak with the sponsors, the drivers are willing to do to try to benefit people who need a little help.
Marty Snyder, what's going on?
Well, the Childress cars have it going on, Steve. They're running awfully well. Kevin Harvick getting ready to pull back out. He and his teammate Jeff Burton, really fast cars right now. And I talked to Harvick a moment ago. He said the car exactly where we want it to be. Now what they're trying to do, Larry Mack and Jeff, you can comment on this, they're trying to build adjustability in the car for tomorrow. They have the setup where they want it. Now they're putting different springs and spring rubbers in, seeing if they can accomplish the same thing with those in there so they can use those during the race on Sunday, maybe pull them out, maybe make the car more adjustable for the race.
And, Jeff, that's exactly what we talked about at the top of the show.
It is. I mean, they're trying to get that balance. They found where they wanted to be. Now let's try to work around it, put some things in place of this so that we have more tunability and adjustability in this race car.
And, of course, Kevin Harvick racing here with a heavy heart. His wife, Delena's father, John Paul Linville, passed away this past Tuesday after a long bout with cancer. So our condolences and prayers and thoughts go out to the Harvick family as well as the Linville family.
And Delena's father, John Linville, had over 100 NASCAR Busch Series starts in his racing career. Also read that Kevin Harvick, his racing operation, KHI, is increasing. Bernie Lamar is going to drive his Busch car with sponsorship from Dollar General. And, of course, he'll field a car again for Tony Stewart to run some races. And Ron Hornaday will drive his truck next year. Matt Yoakum.
Jeff Gordon back in the garage. Now, you did hear him say that the car is out of control. And then later on in the conversation with Steve Letarte, he says it is extremely loose, but it is better. We are making headway on the front of the car, but he says the car is just so loose. It'll be great on the long run because this track traditionally tightens up, but it's just so loose at the beginning of the run, it's really tough to hold on to. They are making spring changes across the back of the car. And I'm going to go to Marty Snyder next, but Larry Mack, write this down because he says, and I quote, "It feels like I have 1,000 pounds of rear split." I'll let you describe that later on. So let's go across the garage to Marty.
And we're going to talk about Elliott Sadler. And this race car was brand new at Charlotte. And when he raced it there, he said it was the fastest car he'd ever driven in his entire life. Elliott told me since then, though, they just have not found the speed in this car. At Atlanta, they did not have the speed in this car, and they just don't have it here this weekend either. Right now, Elliott says it's about a top 10 race car. They're fine-tuning it a little bit, trying to make it better, but still searching for a little bit more here on the 38 team. And Elliott said one thing, guys, the track is changing. He's noticing that the track is tightening up. More rubber getting on the track, so the track changing even during this practice session.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. And Jeff, Larry, let's talk about that. 1,000 pounds of rear split. Matt Yoakum reported on the 24 car of Jeff Gordon. What does he mean by that?
Well, we talk about the track tightening up and the car's not turning. The more split you can put in the rate of the rear springs, in other words, a softer left rear spring and a stiffer right rear spring, will help that car to really turn. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys don't have 1,000 pounds of split. But, you know, I know these guys are saying they've got to be a little free at the beginning to be right at the end. But, Jeff, you can't be sideways loose because you'll wreck the thing running around here at 190 miles an hour.
No, when you get in a pack of cars, somebody's going to turn you around arrow-wise or whatever. So you got to get your car up underneath you like you need to. Again, let's go back and make sure everybody understands. When we talk about rear split, I'm going to give you an example. Left rear spring, 200 pounds. Right rear spring, 1,000 pounds. The difference in that is 800 pounds. That is the split we're referring to. And Jeff is saying right now, I've got way too much of that, so the car is just basically driving off the right rear, getting down in the corner so he can't handle it. They've got to close that up. You saw them changing the left rear spring. They're probably going to tighten that up a little bit so he can get down in the turn like he needs to.
What would, if they did make that adjustment, how much of a change, Jeff, from where they are?
Well, he needs to tell me how much. You know, if it's real bad, probably change it 100, maybe 200 pounds to make sure what kind of effect that does, or at least put a spring rubber in it. One of these things will make it tighten up. Obviously, they're changing the left rear spring.
Kyle Busch is heading to the garage. He is fifth fastest in the number 5 car. Mark Martin is the quickest in this final practice.
Dear Darrell, if you hadn't been a race driver, what would you have been?
Me? I was born to race. Sincerely, Darrell Waltrip.
Toyota, moving forward.
I don't want to just welcome my holiday guests. I want to wow them.
This holiday season, give your home a few presents, too. You can at the Home Depot. Right now, get no payments, no interest till January 2007 on all purchases store-wide of $299 or more. Just use your Home Depot or Expo Consumer Credit Card. From kitchen and bath to floors and more, you can make your home wonderful just in time for the holidays.
At the Home Depot, you can do it. We can help.
It's time for football, the Hooters way, where you get 2 spectator sports for the price of 1. And if you really miss the stadium, we can always pour beer down your back and stand in front of the TV. And you can catch all your favorite games here with our brand new big screen TVs. And at Hooters, everybody gets a cheerleader.
Football the Hooters way. You'll be praying for overtime.
I think I'm nervous. I don't want to picture. I'm now. What are we going to do?
Bad idea. Ignoring your car's maintenance. Good idea. Relying on the NASCAR Performance Network to choose a repair shop you're going to love. Just visit NASCAR.com and click on Auto Service.
Mark Martin working on his 24th lap of practice. He is still the fastest in this tune-up for tomorrow's race.
And what I noticed is right now, looking at our practice sheet, all the fast laps were cut at the very beginning of this practice. It's probably when everyone had fresh tires on. That's when the track would be the coolest in this practice, as you see him trying to get around Jimmy Spencer in the 50 car here.
And Larry, one other thing I'm noticing right now is he tries real hard to get on the inside of Spencer that heads off into turn one, is the consistency of his lap times. And they haven't fallen off that much. He's one of the very few cars that looks like he's still in the 29-second bracket, which could mean trouble for the rest of the season.
Mark has a win here. That came in 1998. Marty, what else is Mark Martin talking about?
Well, I caught a moment with him just a second ago, Steve, and I said, how's the car? And he said, everything's going great today. And I said, does it have the same feel as it did in Atlanta when Mark was so happy and so confident he would win the race? He said it's even better.
And this is not the same car that he had at Atlanta. We talked about Dale Earnhardt Jr. having the same car, Jeff Gordon not having the same car. This is the car that Mark ran at Lowe's. Talked to Pat Trice in the car that was at Atlanta last week. It's been sitting there waiting on Homestead Miami race.
It's been 145 races between visits to Victory Lane for Jeff Burton. That's hard to believe for a guy who has 17 Nextel Cup wins. Got his first win here, as you see, in 1997.
But what I'm seeing with this race team, yeah, they're going to start pretty deep in the field. They're going to start back about 32nd, but he's coming off 2 consecutive top 10 finishes, Marty.
Yeah, and he came from the back also last week, Larry Mack, to finish in the top 10. They've run so well, put together back-to-back top 10s. And you know, the last time Jeff Burton put together 3 consecutive top 10 finishes, July of 2003. He and I talked about that this morning. He had no idea it had been that long, but he's fairly confident in this race car and his ability to finish in the top 10 once again this weekend, and very fast in this final practice session.
And what's amazing, those 2 consecutive top 10 finishes, he's running good here. Kevin Hamlin is his crew chief here this week. Kevin Hamlin will not be with this race team for the next 2 races or in 2006. Scott Miller, who's actually over with Dave Blaney, will be with Jeff Burton in 2006. They're going to start that next week for the final 2 races. Kevin Hamlin has been offered a different position with Richard Childress Racing for 2006 because, as we know, Clint Boyer's moving to the 07. Gil Martin, who's crew chief in the Busch Series, will be coming with him.
Meanwhile, Jimmy Johnson, second in points, 43 behind Tony Stewart.
And you know, Steve, he has a top 10 finish in all 4 of his Texas starts here, but he has never led a lap here at Texas Motor Speedway.
And Larry, that brings up a real interesting point. If he can't lead a lap, and let's just say Tony Stewart does, Tony Stewart continues to lead in the bonus numbers as far as that's concerned. He's got 45, I believe, bonus points over these last
chase
races, that is. And again, that has allowed him to build on that lead. And I think, again, that's one of the biggest differences between Tony and a lot of other guys that are involved in this chase. He is really racking up the bonus.
Well, Tony Stewart has 15 more bonus points than any other chase driver. Jimmy Johnson in the 48 lost the championship last year by less than 10 points.
Matt.
And he gave away 28 points last week at Atlanta when he finished 16th. Now, he spent a considerable amount of time here in the garage here, taking their time, coming up with different ideas on how to tweak the 48 car. Now, Jimmy said the car is a little free, but they're about 2/10 off where they feel like they really need to be, and then it goes drastically to the tight side. And they made 3 changes while the car was here in the garage area. He's going to go out, run a few more laps, and see if that has indeed helped the handling of the 48 car.
And boy, if I've ever seen a race car go from the penthouse to the outhouse, it was in the last 100 miles last week in Atlanta with this 48 car. They went from being a top 10 car to getting lapped and finished 16th last week is the reason they gave those points up.
You know, Jimmy's comment after the race was, well, it wasn't the end of the world, but how demoralizing is it for a race team to have a car that good and then have it fade when it's money time?
Well, you're sitting there watching Tony Stewart just barely hang in the top 10. You know it's an opportunity to capitalize, and next thing you know, he's driving by you.
Missed opportunities. When you go back and you look at your season, especially if you don't win the championship, that's what you'll be reviewing right now, is trying to figure out how in the world you can keep them happening the next year. And Matt, you know how important that is. You've been around racing a long time. Reviewing and staying on top of your game is so important.
Jeff, absolutely. When you look at the run that they have had together, this 48 team, coming so close so many times to winning that championship, many felt like they were going to be the championship frontrunner this year, and they have really backed up a lot of their performance from last year, but they're going to need some more wins, have some maximum point kind of days. They can't give up points like they did last week. Now, further observations here from the 48 team. Chad just asked Jimmy, how is the car? He's going to be bringing it in probably this time. He said they have made headway in some areas where the car was tight, but it is still tight in the center.
And this is the same car that he had in Atlanta, but it's also the same car he won 2 of these chase races at Dover and at Lowe's.
Jimmy McMurray tried to nail down the 11th position of points, which pays $1 million. Right now, he is 22nd fastest in this practice.
Concept makers to industry trendsetters. Tonight on Speed, learn how the Honda Civic earns a King of Sport Compact title, Honda at Speed. Then, take a sneak peek at the all-new Civic Si. A legend returns. Tonight, 8 Eastern, only on Speed.
A robot can make a car. But this is how you can make it roar. A chip can control the engine. But this is how you can set it free. A manual says what a car might do. Now discover what it wants to do. Give it the edge. Give it Syntec. No leading oil provides more horsepower. For maximum power, great cars want more than just oil. Give them liquid engineering.
Working from home changed my life.
It all started when I was referred by this free service.
With all the money I made working from home, I bought a new home. This is the one website you have to visit.
Put your computer to work now.
All you need is a computer and a little belief in yourself.
I'm making $5,000 a month.
I make over $7,000 a month working part-time.
I love the lifestyle my home business offers, and the money's great too.
Log on to 99venture.com.
Homeowners need cash? You need to know about the no closing cost home equity line of credit from Countrywide Home Loans. Unlike many lenders, with Countrywide there's no application fee, no credit reporting fee, no appraisal fee, no underwriting fee, no closing costs. So you can use more of your loan to pay off credit cards and lower your bills. The no closing cost home equity line of credit from Countrywide. No one can do what Countrywide can. Apply now. Call 1-800-641-8419.
One final race, one final shot, one Nextel Cup champion. 10 races culminate in one final shootout for the Nextel Cup championship, and only Speed is live, covering all the action. From Miami, the biggest week in NASCAR.
Man, these guys are crazy.
With NASCAR Nation, backseat drivers, the chase is on. Trackside, but full qualifying. NASCAR This Morning, NASCAR Victory Lane, and more. Plus Sunday, the biggest pregame show NASCAR has ever seen.
It's crazy all over town.
Covering every possible angle.
This is a pretty interesting story.
Speed will be on the air live before the biggest race of the year.
This is an exciting time, no question about that.
From pre-race warm-ups to post-race burnouts, Speed puts you in the middle of it all.
Door to door, beating and banging.
If you're not watching NASCAR on Speed, you're not watching NASCAR. Championship Week begins November 16th on Speed.
So we basically are on 24 hours a day in Homestead. Is that the message of that?
Well, what the moral of the story is, when you get home from Phoenix, just cut your television on Speed.
Right.
And other than on Saturday when the Busch race is on TNT, and on Sunday when the Nextel Cup finale is on NBC, just keep it on Speed, and you won't miss anything.
We got it covered.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. heads to the garage. He is 14th fastest in this practice. Meanwhile, your championship points leader, Tony Stewart, back out onto the racetrack.
He's ran 24 laps in this practice, and like Jeff's been talking about these lap times, his fast lap was on the third lap of this practice at a 29.50. His last lap on the racetrack was a 30.02, so that's about a half a second give up, even though he's been in and out of the garage area.
Marty, what's going on with Tony Stewart?
Just checked with car chief Scott Deal, and he said, you know, the car's actually been pretty good. They've been fighting what most people in the garage area have been fighting out on the racetrack today, or most of the drivers have been, a tight condition. So they've been working on trying to get that out, but Tony, really happy with the race car so far.
Let's get back to a point you guys alluded to moments ago about car selection. Which car do you bring to this Texas Motor Speedway? Why did Jeff Gordon's team decide to bring one versus the other? Those kinds of decisions are difficult.
And to me, I think a lot of it depends on, where you are in your program. I mean, if you've been out here testing and you've got a car set up here to come out like Mark Martin did, he obviously left the car that he finished so well at Atlanta at home, but he felt like the car for Texas was better than the car from Atlanta. So, you do something like that based off their information, but in the case like maybe with the 24 car, they struggled on racetracks like this. They ran so well at Atlanta, finishing second. That would have been my choice of coming with that same car because you knew the tendencies of that car, a very similar racetrack, rather than the car you tested.
I mean, Robert Yates taught me, and you've got to be smart, but Robert Yates taught me, never save a race car. The next race is the most important race that you've got on your schedule.
Matt, what's going on with Jeff Gordon as he heads down pit road?
Well, I agree exactly with what both Jeff and Larry are saying, but I talked to Steve Letarte, Gordon's crew chief. He says, we had a great run last week, but we had a great car to bring to Texas. We feel like this is a better all-around car than the car that we almost won with at Atlanta. And remember, this team is also trying to use the final 3 races as somewhat of a test session for 2006. And they feel like that although they're working out the new car bugs on this brand new car, they feel like they're going to be in decent shape on Sunday.
And the other assumption, Matt, that people may have is, well, Lowe's Motor Speedway is 1.5 miles, Atlanta's 1.5 miles, Texas is 1.5 miles. They're all the same, right? No, they're not.
No, they are not. I mean, they're very different. The only thing that's the same about them is the size of the racetrack. I mean, at Atlanta last week, you were watching guys, even in practice before qualifying, run at the top of the racetrack, the middle of the racetrack, at the bottom. You could move it around. So far, it seems like in this practice session, now the Busch race could change this, but everybody, for the most part, has been right around the bottom of this racetrack.
Carl Edwards in the 99 car is 11th quickest in his practice. He has run 25 laps.
Now, we talk about car selection. This is not the car that Carl Edwards won Atlanta with last week. This is an older chassis with a new body, Marty.
Yeah, that one, too, kind of surprising, Larry Mack. And basically, it's a brand-new body and, in essence, a brand-new race car they brought here this weekend. Bob Osborne told me they did give some consideration to bringing their Atlanta race car, but they had a plan, stuck with it. The Atlanta car will go to Homestead in a few weeks. Carl's been a little tight, but we had talked about some teams maybe scuffing tires. Carl's team decided to do that in this final session. They have scuffed 3 sets of tires to have those ready for tomorrow's race.
And the biggest thing you gain with scuffing tires here is the fact you know what the characteristics of that set of tires is. And trust me, it will differ. You may have one set that's a little loose, one set that's a little tight. That's the biggest thing I always like about scuffing tires in a place maybe where you didn't give that much up from sticker new tires to 1 or 2 lap scuff.
And also, I think you pointed out early on, Larry, that this racetrack's going to change. It's going to end late in the evening. The track characteristics are going to change. So having those scuffed tires during the heat of the day may prove to be a really smart move on their part.
Carl Edwards, what a season. 3 wins for the young driver from Missouri. He's just 107 points behind the leader, Tony Stewart.
Now, he's ran 27 laps in this practice. His fast lap was the first lap of the practice at 29.30. Now, you can see on these little fresher tires, that last lap was 29.82. He's got a little work to do, though, Mar. He's starting back in the 30th position.
About a minute and a half left in this practice session, the final practice before Sunday's Dickies 500. Mark Martin, 43 laps of practice.
He just continues to run. He wants to make sure he knows what this car is going to do on these long runs. Plus, something these guys are trying to do here at the tail end of this practice, we know this could get into some green flag runs tomorrow. You want to make sure you get a good reading on that fuel mileage.
Got to have that fuel mileage, and here's a guy I think maybe looking at trying a way to figure out how to get to the front, and that's Ryan Newman. Even though he sat on the pole yesterday, this is a backup car. Right now, he's 9th quickest in his practice, ran about almost 30 laps so far, Larry, but I'm sure that they're still trying to get this thing balanced exactly like he wants it, and fuel mileage will definitely come into play, and we know that Matt Borland will roll the dice on fuel mileage in a hurry.
Marty Snyder, what's going on with the 12 car?
Well, Steve, just listening to the team on the radio and listening to Ryan on the radio, it doesn't seem like they've made a whole lot of progress in this session this afternoon. And loose end has been a problem, especially in dirty areas, and he's car's very loose, and he's still tied off the corners, and they just haven't made a whole lot of progress from that point. And one crew member just told me, the car is not bad, it's not great, it's just okay, and that's kind of where they're at right now, basically about a 6 or a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10.
And what a disaster these guys had. I know in these 7 chase races they have 5 top 10 finishes, but last week sat on the pole, finished 23rd, 2 laps down. They were never a factor from the drop of the green flag.
And you also got to realize, he told us when they interviewed him yesterday, that this is a car that's got an old chassis on it with an updated body, so they feel like it's a decent car, but so far they're fighting with it.
And this final practice is over. Mark Martin was the quickest. We'll come back and wrap things up right after this here on Speed.
Miami's nightlife just got a whole lot brighter. Ford Championship Weekend returns for another chase for the NASCAR Nextel Cup season finale. This time under the lights. The drama, one lap.
Sybil's going to win the battle, and Busch will win the war.
The tightest points race ever. Ford Championship Weekend, November 18th through the 20th. For tickets, call 1-866-409-RACE or log on to HomesteadMiamiSpeedway.com. Ford Championship Weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Under the lights.
Bang.
Out here, I can take on anything. Any car, any driver, any track.
Peak Long Life Antifreeze. Formulated with an advanced organic technology to protect any engine, any make, any model, anytime. Whatever you drive, Peak can take it on.
I'm tough enough to take on anything and fast enough to get away with it.
Get the antifreeze that can take on every car. Peak Long Life.
When you peak, you win.
Is your dandruff on full blast? Turning people off? Garnier Fructis Fortifying Anti-Dandruff Shampoo. Created with perithione zinc, it blows dandruff flakes away. It's proven. The Garnier Fructis system makes hair up to 5 times stronger. So much shinier. So effective, no flakes, guaranteed. Kiss those flakes goodbye. For hair that shines with all its strength, Garnier Fructis Fortifying Anti-Dandruff Shampoo.
Garnier.
NASCAR Nextel Cup final practice from the Texas Motor Speedway is brought to you by High Endurance Oils from Mobil, the official lubricants of NASCAR. And this final practice is over. Matt Yoakum with closing stories.
Jimmy Johnson finished third here back in the spring, and your team threw a lot of things at this race car in this final practice. Did you finally hit on what you're looking for, Jimmy?
We're getting there. I mean, there's been a lot of hard work going into it, and you know, this track has its challenges of getting into the turn, and once you can get that under control, it seems like the rest of the corner comes together, and we're just struggling trying to get in the turn right now, but we've got, you know, it's not an impound race, which is nice. We got some time to think about it. We've tried a few different things. We got our teammates that are running well, so we can pull all that together and then make the best scenario for tomorrow.
In fact, near the conclusion is happy. I heard a number of drivers say this track is finicky. In fact, the track is a little slimy trying to get a handle on this very tricky Texas Motor Speedway. To Marty Snyder.
Matt, it's also a good thing it's not an impound race for Tony Stewart and his team. The last setup they tried on the race car wasn't too good as they're getting ready to pull the 20 car in. Here's Tony's quote. Other than about spinning out and almost wrecking it 2 or 3 times, that last run wasn't too bad. So I don't think they'll leave the setup like it is in the 20 car right now. They'll be making some changes before tomorrow morning. Steve?
Thanks, Marty. And, you know, Jeff, Larry, Marty brings up a great point. Earlier this week, Tony Stewart described this racetrack as tricky.
And it is tricky. You're trying to run around right now what we have a single groove racetrack at over 190 miles per hour entering these corners.
And it's been described as slippery, slimy, greasy, no grip, being too fast, too loose, getting in the corner. So, again, tricky is a good analogy of it.
But I know one thing it is, a big event. $8.6 million purse, over $400,000 to win this race, and you talk about a big sporting event, over 200,000 people here tomorrow.
You know what you say about that, Larry Mack? Show me the money.
That's it. God bless Texas.
That's it.
So final practice is over here at the Texas Motor Speedway. Just 3 races remain in the chase for the Nextel Cup.
And one other thing I want to point out, somebody's going to be the first winner of the fall race at Texas. Pretty impressive.
And there has never been a repeat winner here since '97 when the track opened.
So the question remains, will we have a repeat winner? Or when we come back here in the spring with NASCAR on Fox, will we have 10 races with 10 different winners?
We'll find out all those answers tomorrow on NBC as Matt Kenseth heads to the garage. For Jeff Hammond, Larry McReynolds, Matt Yoakum, Marty Snyder, the entire Speed Race team, I'm Steve Burns saying thanks for being with us. We'll see you later.